Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Bay Area UU Church on this brisk but not too cold yet Sunday morning. I'm Reverend Katie McQuage-Loukas, and my pronouns are she and hers. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and however you arrived with us this morning in body or in spirit, whether you came in person, whether you're watching us online, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. If this is your first time with us this morning, you are welcome here. If this is your 500th time with us this morning, you are welcome here. And we are glad that all of you are here. Come into this place of memory and hope to take a deep breath and pause for this hour. This pause in a busy week, in a busy life. Take this moment to simply be. To be in the presence of our companions on this journey, and to remember that we are not alone, that we are never alone. And then let us gather ourselves for this part of our shared journey together. Come, let us worship together this morning.
Good morning. I'm Verva Densmore, and I know the order of worship says I'm Kathy Charles, but I'm not. She wasn't able to be here, so you get me. Jane Abone will light our chalice this morning. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to illuminate our minds. And that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities that it brings us. Thank you, Jane. Please stand in body or spirit for hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Our covenant is our shared promise of how we will be together in faith, freedom, and commitment. We often think that these words are about how we'll try to be together in community, in this church community. But our covenant is larger than that. It's a statement about how we hope to be in the world, a proclamation of the aspirations we share for creating a fairer and more peaceful life for all. Please join me now in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Our responsive reading this morning is number 544 in the gray hymnal. Number 544. It's by Reverend Kathleen McTeague. I will begin reading the plain text, and please join in with me on the italicized text. The 1st of January is another day dawning. The sun rising as the sun always rises, the earth moving in its rhythms, with or without our calendars to name a certain day as the day of new beginning, separating the old from the new. So it is, everything is the same, bound into its history as we ourselves are bound. Yet also we stand at a threshold, the new year something truly new, still unformed, leaving a stunning power in our hands. What shall we do with this great gift of time this year? Let us begin by remembering that whatever justice, whatever peace and wholeness might bloom in our world this year, we are the hearts and minds, the hands and feet, the embodiment of all the best visions of our people. The new year can be new ground for the seeds of our dreams. Let us take the step forward together onto new ground, planting our dreams well, faithfully, and in joy.
Good morning. My name is Gloria Miller. I'm the Acting Director of Religious Education at Bay Area. Today's story for all ages is The Water Bearer's Garden. A water bearer in India had two large pots, each hung on one end of a pole that he carried across his neck. One of the pots had a crack in it, and at the end of the long walk from the stream to the master's house, the cracked pot arrived only half full, while the other pot was perfect, and always delivered a full portion of water. For 2 years, this went on daily, with the bearer having only 1.5 pots full of water to his master's house. Of course, the perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments, perfect to the end for which it was made, but the poor cracked pot was ashamed of its own perfections and miserable that it was able to accomplish only half of what it had been made to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be a bitter failure, it spoke to the water bearer one day by the stream. "I am ashamed of myself, and I want to apologize to you." "Why?" asked the bearer. "What are you ashamed of?" "I've been able for these past 2 years to deliver only half my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak all the way back to your master's house. And because of my flaws, you have to do all this work and you don't get full value from our efforts." The water bearer felt sorry for the cracked pot, and in his compassion he said, "As we return to the master's house, I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the way." And indeed, as they went up the hill, the old cracked pot took notice of the sun warming the beautiful wildflowers on the side of the path, and this cheered it some. But at the end of the trail, it still felt sad because it had leaked out half its load again, and so he apologized to the bearer for its failure. The bearer asked the pot, "Did you notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side?" "That's because I have always known about your flaw, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on our side of the path, and every day while we walk back from the stream, you have watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick beautiful flowers to decorate my master's table, and without you being just the way you are, he would not have this beauty to grace his house." We all have our own unique flaws. We are all cracked pots. In the great web of life, nothing goes to waste. Don't be afraid of your flaws. Acknowledge them, and you too can be the cause of beauty. Know that in our weakness, we find our strength.
I love that story. Our keeper of the flame this morning is Jace.
Please join me in saying, "We pass this flame of religious freedom from generation to generation." This is the moment in our service where we truly join in our shared journey together. We gather today with everything in our lives from the week behind us. We gather carrying our worries and our hopes for the week ahead. We come holding milestones in our hearts, moments where our lives have changed and shifted. We bring our joys and our sorrows here because we know that others too rejoice and others too sorrow, and that we are not alone. I'd like to begin this morning by lighting one candle for peace. We light it for Gaza, where 1 out of every 100 Gazans has been killed, hundreds of civilians dying every day, and where the entire population is short of food and water. We light it too for Ukraine, Nagorno-Karabakh, Myanmar, Sudan, and all the places of the world where violence has taken hold of people's lives. And so let us hold a silent moment of prayer and meditation for peace. We light one additional candle too for the Texas border, also a place of violence and harm. I invite you to come forward as you are moved to light candles of your own for yourself, for a loved one, for hopes and dreams, for worries and anxieties. Whatever you bring, know that we will witness it and we will hold it with you for a time. We light one final candle for all who cannot be here today to light candles of their own, for friends and loved ones far away, for people traveling, for people watching online. You too are held in our hearts and in our prayers. Will you please join with me in prayer? Creative Spirit, source of inspiration, spark that renews the world and our spirits. Awaken us to your presence this morning. For some among us, the past year was hard, and perhaps also the year before. Some among us look ahead to the new year with anxiety or weariness or sadness. Help us to remember always that even in the shorter days of winter, there is sunlight, even when it is hidden by clouds. Help us to remember, too, that the dark times of the year are holy, that these times are for rest and renewal. And may we find the rest and renewal we need in this time. Some among us look to the new year with joyous anticipation. Open us and enable us to spread that joy and that wonder, to enliven our communities and our relationships. We give thanks this morning for the gift of a new year, with its new chances, new opportunities, new perspectives, and new dreams. We give thanks this morning for the opportunity to be together, for loving relationships and caring community. Spirit of life and love, inspire us in the year to come. Inspire us to see the holy in the faces of others, to see the holy within ourselves, to know that we are worthy of receiving love and that we are capable of giving love. May we remember that we embody you, Spirit of love and justice, and may we live our lives with love as our guide. Amen, and may it be so. Please remain seated for our prayer in song. It is number 1031 in the Teal hymnal if you would like the music, and it is, of course, on the projector as well.
Our reading this morning is called To Invoke Love. It is by Sean Parker Dennison, and this is an excerpt. To invoke love is to take the risk of inviting chaos to visit the spaces we spent so much time making tidy, and to watch as the breath of life scatters everything you have only just folded and put away. To invoke love is to allow for the possibility that your words and actions might be so empowered you can no longer believe in apathy or the self-righteous idea that nothing can change. To invoke love is to give up self-deprecation, false humility, pride, to consider yourself worthy to be made whole, willing to encounter love that will never let us let go of each other. To invoke love is to guard against assumptions, take care with our words, and practice forgiveness. not as an ethereal idea, but right here in the messy midst of our imperfect lives. To invoke love is to approach each day and every person with wonder, anticipating love's arrival. Is this the moment? Is this love's grand entrance? Is this person the embodiment of love? Am I the one? To invoke love is to play the fool, the one more concerned with loving than with appearance or reputation, the one ready and willing to be vulnerable, abandoning anything that gets in love's way.
Thank you for sharing that with verve and energy. It's always a bit of a challenge when I'm picking a reading and I'm trying to visualize how someone who is not me is going to read it. And so I always appreciate when it's done with panache. So the 14th might seem a little bit late to be doing a New Year's Eve service, but in some ways, maybe it's the perfect time. Many of us have probably already broken our resolutions. Many of us are coming back to work and trying to navigate, that time period between Christmas and New Year and going back to work is this strange liminal time. It's not this, it's not that, it's the in-betweenness. And most of us lost track at some point in there of exactly what day of the week it might have been. And then suddenly there's a new year, and we're supposed to spring forth from this fully restored, rested, and ready to be productive. See, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Except we're the same people we were on December 30th. And some of you know that I'm a big basketball fan, and this is funny. I was just telling someone I'm not really the minister who uses sports stories in sermons, but this was something that I laughed out loud at and wanted to share with you. I grew up a Rockets fan, and so these days, when I'm watching TNT on Thursday nights and Charles Barkley is on, it kind of makes my heart glad because I grew up watching him play. And the guys were teasing him, and they were teasing each other, and they were all asking, oh, what are your resolutions? And on the spot, Charles was peer pressured a little bit into giving up his beloved Diet Coke, which I think he's one of those people who drinks like 9 cans of Diet Coke a day. And this past Thursday, everybody checked in. All the guys were talking about what they had chosen for their resolutions and how they'd done in the last week. And one of them leaned over and looked in Charles's cup and said, "That's not water," and picked it up and poured out that delicious amber liquid. And Chuck confessed that he had not made it one entire day. Not one. Not a single day without his Diet Coke. And Sir Charles is well off. He's a confident adult human being. He is a superstar. And he still caved in to peer pressure to make the resolution he felt like he was supposed to make, and was able to keep it for less than 24 hours. And really nothing has ever made a superstar more relatable than this moment. And so now here we are on the 14th, and I imagine this room has a few broken resolutions. Some of you might be going strong with your new meal plans and your gym memberships and your decluttering plans and language learning, or whatever felt like the biggest project and obligation on January 1st, but I, for one, have a really hard time, and I gave that up a long time ago because I'm just not that good at it. We have this vision of a better version of ourselves, of a 2.0 version with new features and new style, but it's January. It's just a page on a calendar that we made. It's not a magic spell. And January might be the least motivational season of the year. The trees have dropped their leaves and gone dormant. Bees are clustering in their hives, snuggling up to each other to keep warm and eating honey. Bears are hibernating. If we are eating locally and seasonally, we're down to some greens and some winter roots. And so human beings naturally looked at each other and said, oh yeah, this is the perfect time to eat more vegetables and go outside and go for a run. And I think it's because we see this time as a moment of discipline, maybe of punishing ourselves instead of caring for ourselves and loving ourselves. And as a side note, those of you who are running, be careful. This week is going to get pretty icy. And we don't have the luxury of curling up in our dens to hibernate or in our hives to eat honey, because we do have to abide by this made-up calendar of ours. We do have to get up and go to work and live our lives. But I think it's important for us to notice when what society demands of us is so out of sync with the world we're actually living in, because it raises a lot of questions about this whole operation. Who decided what was useful and productive? What made-up rules are floating around out there unquestioned as we try to reshape ourselves to them? Is this new thing, this new shape, even something we actually want to be? Catherine May is an English essayist, and she writes about the winter season as one of inner, slow transformation. She writes, "Plants and animals don't fight the winter. They don't pretend it's not happening and attempt to carry on the same lives they live in the summer. They prepare, they adapt, they perform extraordinary acts of metamorphosis to get through. Wintering is a time of withdrawing from the world, maximizing scant resources, carrying out acts of efficiency and vanishing from sight, but that is where the transformation occurs. Winter is not the death of the life cycle, but the crucible." She continues, "Once we stop wishing it were summer, winter can be a glorious season where the world takes on a sparse beauty and even the pavements sparkle. It's a time for reflection and recuperation, for slow replenishment, for putting your house in order, doing these deeply unfashionable things, slowing down, letting your spare time expand, getting enough sleep, resting, is a radical act now, but it's essential. This is a crossroads we all know, a moment to shed a skin. And if you do, you'll expose all those painful nerve endings and feel so raw that you will need to take care of yourself for a while. And if you don't, that skin will harden around you." And she concludes by saying it's one of the most important choices you'll ever make. And so this time of year is calling us to nourish ourselves, to renew ourselves. And perhaps that sometimes includes changing ourselves, but there's an enormous difference between the change that comes from hating something about who we are and the change that comes from loving ourselves and caring for ourselves. That is the change and transformation that bubbles up from who we are and is the foundation of a journey to the best version of ourselves instead of the version of us that someone else has made and pressed on us. And this is the version of the process that doesn't involve hurting ourselves to make square pegs fit in round holes, that recognizes perhaps we need to shed our skin, but we need to treat our rawness gently. The last time I preached something like this, some kind of a New Year's sermon, was December of 2019, and I was looking at 2020 with a little trepidation, and little did I know what was to come. I don't necessarily have more foresight now than I did then, but I do, once again, look towards our future as a nation, as a world, as a state, with some uncertainty and a little bit of anxiety. And in the face of that kind of uncertainty, it's easy for us to fill our lives with overwork. It's easy for us to be swayed by outside voices that tell us who we ought to be and how we ought to live. It's even easy to do what's called spiritual bypassing, to dive into the work of the Spirit and turn too far inward so that we ignore what's happening in the world around us. But we have choices. We can choose to listen to ourselves and to the natural world, and we can attempt to discern the right places and times for us to show up in all our fullness and our wholeness, to be what the world needs in particular moments. And being able to show up that way simply will not happen if we've taken on more and more and more in an attempt to become something we're not. And so perhaps the correct questions are not, how can I improve myself? How can I be better? But rather, what will be missing in the world if I am not that thing? If I don't pay attention, what is the gap that will not be filled if I'm moving myself in a different direction? The sign outside is a fragment of a Howard Thurman quote because I couldn't fit the whole thing on there. And the full quote is, "Do not ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it." Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I want to be clear that this isn't a cop-out. We're not saying never listen to what the world needs. We're saying try to match who you already are with what the world needs. And I'm not saying never bother to improve, to just throw away all productivity. What I am saying is that the world needs a lot of things. It needs too many things for any one individual to fix it all and save the world. So it's an important part of our deepening and our maturation as spiritual beings, as activists, as people in relationship with one another, to learn what makes us come alive, to know ourselves, to see ourselves clearly for who we are. If we cannot meet every need of the world, and we can't, we need to know what we can offer, the best way for us to show up. And we need to give ourselves what we need to do that, to show up joyfully. And to do this, we must love ourselves and know ourselves. We must turn inward to where the transformation is actually happening, see clearly what there is to find there, and enfold it with love. And this leads to different questions. Questions like, where am I already enough, already whole? Where am I almost whole, and what could I do to nurture this? Instead of what's wrong with me, what do I need to fix, where am I broken? If Unitarian Universalism has a patron saint of slowing down and stepping out of the stream, it's probably Henry David Thoreau, who said, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. Nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary." And as much as I sometimes tease him in my mind as I'm reading, knowing exactly how much support he had from wealthy friends and from family to do his little experiment in the woods, I think it's important to remember that he never intended to go be a solitary hermit, self-reliant forever. He was attempting to live deliberately, to strip away anything inessential. And it was in many ways a lengthy Sabbath, a retreat. It was part of a journey that always included returning to the world, perhaps with something new to say about it. The modern, contemporary American equivalent might be Jenny Odell. She's a California artist and a writer. And she has a recent book about time, which I've been dipping into when I have spare spaces for it. But the book before that really caught my attention is called How to Do Nothing. And I don't really need an instruction manual necessarily, because I think I'm pretty good at sitting around being idle. But this isn't actually about that. It's about political resistance to things that demand our attention when we may or may not want to give it. She says, "I want this not only for artists and writers, but for any person who perceives life to be more than an instrument, something that cannot be optimized. A simple refusal motivates my argument, refusal to believe that the present time and place and the people who are here with us are somehow not enough." And so her book is about stopping, it's about breathing, it's about noticing the world around her, the world around us, and it's about feeling ourselves in time instead of simply filling our time. And I think this is important, believing that we are enough, that the people around us are enough, and that right now is enough. Because this becomes a foundation for clarity, From this place of clarity, we can begin perhaps to imagine what the world might be like if we are not mere instruments or machines, if all of us are whole, and if none of us need to justify our existence, really knowing all the way down to our bones that there is more to us than what we produce and what the world expects of us. Elsewhere in her book, Odell notes that in the short term, distractions keep us from doing the things we want to do, but in the longer term, they accumulate and they keep us from living the lives we want to live, undermine our capacities for reflection, making it harder, in the words of American philosopher Harry Frankfurt, to want what we want to want. And so she says there are deep ethical implications here for freedom, for well-being, and the integrity of the self. And she calls for us to disengage as the first stage of doing nothing in order for us to re-engage with something else, to set aside all the things that prevent us from living deliberately, to attend to the integrity of the self. These are acts of self-love. And self-love enables us then to go forth and love this world. And I don't quite agree with the saying that you have to love yourself to love others, because honestly, I think loving ourselves is really hard, and sometimes loving other people is easy. And we learn a whole lot about love for friends and family. It's easier to love other people sometimes, to be forgiving and compassionate and kind. But to turn that on ourselves, to love ourselves, this empowers us to bring love to an even wider world, beyond the world of friends and family, to spread compassion and kindness and justice wherever we go. When we know ourselves, when we accept ourselves, and when we love ourselves, we can recognize the gaps that only we can fill and go forth to do it. So as this new year, freshly born, continues to unfurl, I call on all of us to take our time, to be gentle with ourselves. We don't need to be entirely new versions of ourselves before January is over. We can make quiet space to listen to ourselves so that we gradually reorient into a life that feeds us instead of depleting us. And yes, perhaps for some of us, that means the gym or an eating plan or giving up Diet Coke. But maybe it just means a pot of soup and an invitation for loved ones to share it with you. Maybe it means doing things because they are pleasurable or joyful or restful, and not because they are useful. And yes, we can frame this as preparing ourselves to be more productive later, but we can't let that be the only reason we allow ourselves rest, pleasure, and joy, because we are embodied creatures. We are made for rest and for pleasure. And allowing ourselves these things as an act of self-love, and allowing ourselves the quiet spaces to know ourselves better and judge what we truly need. We must be able to name what we need to fortify ourselves for the year ahead. And it is better to take the time we need to ponder those needs than to leap into someone else's plans. And so let this season be what it is. We are enough. The people we are with are enough. The present moment is enough. Let us treat ourselves with care so that we might live deliberately, find the places we come alive, and then bring that living light out into the world. Amen, and may it be so. One of the ways we express our love for this place, for these people, for this community is through our gifts of time, talent, and treasure. And so take this moment to reflect on the twin practices of gratitude and generosity, arising from that place of love within you to support this church and its work with your giving. And if you are new to us, if this is your first or second or third time, just know that your presence is gift enough. Please join me in blessing our offering with the words in the order of service. This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. So my first announcement for us this morning is that our Saturday, January 20th, Dream a Dream Together is actually postponed, or at least postponed. We're not sure. I don't think we have a new date for it yet. So keep an eye out for an announcement about a new, fresh date for us to do some strategic planning, by which I really hope I mean imagining and dreaming and visioning, and not just serious strategic planning. And lunch will be provided whenever it does happen, so come out at some point in the future for that. My next announcement is about our UU Common Read. And so for those of you who may not know, every year for the past 15, 20 years or so, the UUA has picked a book for all the congregations to read together, to share. And this year's Common Read is on repentance and repair, making amends in an unapologetic world. And it's by Rabbi Danya Rutenberg. And so this read is a chance for us to engage with Judaism, one of the sources of our faith, and it talks about accountability and restitution and relationship repair. Starting February 7th, we'll be having conversations about it. They're in two parts, so there will be one on Wednesday evenings after Vespers, and there will be one two-part series on Sunday afternoons, and you can mix and match depending on your schedule and your needs. So I'm telling you all of this now so that you go out and get a copy and have plenty of time to read it. You can get it from the UUA bookstore or really anywhere books are sold.
And as you can guess, we do have more announcements. So Saturday, January 20th, the youth and friends of our church are invited to come to our monthly Youth Connect event. This month's theme is Game On. Come, hang out, play games, have food, create friendships or strengthen friendships, and that's January 20th at 10 a.m. On Wednesday, January 24th at 10 a.m., join Reverend Katie and other faith leaders at the Lyceum of First Lutheran Church located at 2415 Winnie Street in Galveston and on Zoom. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice." Through keynote presentations and interfaith panelists, we will explore justice as it is defined by our various faith backgrounds. You can find all of the details in the weekly briefs. On Saturday, January 27th, a review of the book, The Mountains Under Her Feet, will be held in Cockrell Hall beginning at 12 noon until 2:30. This event is open to all church members and friends, and our own Catherine Vance is the author of this book, and she will be there. So check the weekly briefs in the order of service for all of the details and a link how to order lunch and to RSVP for the event. After today's service, be sure to join us for coffee and fellowship in Cockrell Hall. It's a wonderful time to gather in fellowship. And after coffee and fellowship, families, parents, and children are invited to a family-style potluck lunch in Cockrell Hall. And the children will, after lunch, the children will play. Childcare is provided by the church. And while they enjoy the company of other kids, parents will discuss parenting issues and parenting tips. And finally, if you're not on our mailing list, please go to BAUUC and sign up so that you can get the weekly news briefs that come out every Tuesday, and they tell about these and many other happenings in these church. Thank you, Paula. Now, please stand in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 1014, Answering the Call of Love.
Soul
When composers rewrite their hymns, I should probably warn all of you to follow the one. I will say Shelton rewrote it himself, so this isn't one of those where I did. This is how he would like us to sing it, to answer the call to love. And so my benediction for us this morning is, do not ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive, because that is how we answer the call to love. So go forth, seek what makes you come alive, and offer it to the world as your gift, springing forth from the heart of love to bring more love, peace, and justice wherever you go. Go in peace, and blessed be.